The United Kingdom stands on the precipice of a constitutional crisis that could redefine the relationship between politics and the judiciary for generations. At the centre of this storm is Prime Minister Keir Starmer's unprecedented attack on the courts, a move that has not only thrown Westminster into disarray but also raised fundamental questions about the very nature of political power and judicial independence. Starmer's blatant disregard for the separation of powers is nothing short of a reckless gambit to consolidate political control, and it must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. The latest controversy began with the ruling of a court granting a Palestinian refugee family the right to settle in the UK under the Ukraine Family Scheme. This ruling, while perfectly within the court's purview, sparked a firestorm of criticism from all corners of British politics. Starmer, normally a champion of legal processes as the former director of public prosecutions, saw fit to denounce this decision with an unprecedented public attack. He described the ruling as completely wrong and demanded it be overturned, claiming that judges should not have the authority to rewrite immigration policy without Parliament's approval. This is an extraordinary breach of the principle that judges should be free from political interference. The fact that Starmer chose to publicly undermine the judiciary, calling for the reversal of a ruling from the highest courts, is an alarming signal of his readiness to engage in power grabs at the expense of democratic principles. The judiciary is the last line of defense against overreach from the executive, ensuring that laws are applied impartially and that government actions adhere to the Constitution. Starmer's words betray an authoritarian tendency, a willingness to leverage political power to dictate legal outcomes, something that no sitting Prime Minister should ever entertain. It is a dangerous path to tread, one that chips away at the very fabric of our constitutional democracy. Judicial independence is the cornerstone of any functioning democracy. Without it, the very notion of the rule of law becomes a hollow shell. If politicians like Starmer are allowed to publicly lash out against judges who issue rulings they disagree with, we open the door for elected officials to control, manipulate, and ultimately dismantle the judiciary for political gain. What we are witnessing is not just a disagreement over policy or even an issue of immigration law. This is a concerted effort to politicize the courts and undermine their role as impartial arbiters of justice. If this trend is allowed to continue unchecked, it will spell the end of an independent judiciary and with it, the collapse of the protections that safeguard our rights and liberties. The Prime Minister's failure to grasp the significance of judicial independence is profoundly troubling. By challenging a court ruling, he is sending a message to the public that the will of elected officials trumps the law, that the courts are merely pawns in the political game, to be used and discarded at will. This is not the behavior of a democratic leader, it is the behavior of a tyrant who seeks to centralize power and eliminate any opposition. Starmer's actions place him in direct conflict with the very essence of British democracy. The courts must not be used as a political tool to placate those in power. They must remain the neutral adjudicators of the law. Furthermore, the Prime Minister's call for an appeal against the court's decision is not just a political misstep, but a constitutional violation. Starmer has now crossed the line into outright legal interference, an act that sets a dangerous precedent for future Prime Ministers. If the courts were to bend to the will of the executive every time a politician disagreed with a ruling, the entire legal framework of the country would become untenable. No judge could ever be free from the pressure of political retaliation, and no citizen could ever be certain that their rights would be upheld impartially. In this high-stakes drama, the judiciary has shown remarkable resolve. Baroness Isa, the Chief Justice, issued a rare and unequivocal rebuke, reminding the public and politicians alike that judicial rulings are not subject to political whims. Her words were not just a defense of the court system but a stark warning to Starmer and others who may be tempted to follow in his footsteps. Challenging the courts undermines the foundations of democracy itself. It is unacceptable for any politician, let alone a Prime Minister, to attempt to delegitimize the judiciary in the name of political expediency. This is not a game, it is a fundamental breach of trust that could have far-reaching consequences for our democratic institutions. The public's response has been just as divided as the political class. While Starmer supporters argue that elected officials must have the right to challenge court rulings, particularly on issues as sensitive as immigration, this reasoning is dangerously short-sighted. If we accept this rationale, we are conceding that the courts should bow to political pressure whenever their decisions conflict with the government's agenda. This is not how a free society operates. The rule of law is not a tool to be wielded by politicians for political advantage. It is a safeguard against the very abuses of power that Starmer's actions seem to encourage. What we are witnessing is not just a clash of opinions, it is a fundamental battle for the future of the UK's constitutional order. The stakes could not be higher. If Starmer is allowed to get away with this, it will send a message to future leaders that undermining the judiciary is permissible if it serves their political interests. On the other hand, a court ruling against him would reaffirm the primacy of the rule of law, setting an important precedent for future leaders. This is a moment that will define the political and legal landscape of Britain for years to come. Keir Starmer must be held accountable for his reckless actions. The integrity of our democratic institutions depends on it. If this Prime Minister's attacks on the judiciary go unchallenged, we risk opening the floodgates to a political system where power knows no limits. This is not a slippery slope, it is a rapid descent into authoritarianism. The judiciary must stand firm. Our democracy demands it.